Now that you're familiar with the various shooting modes, let's look at some advanced shooting modes and techniques. The first mode is called Programmed Auto Mode and is represented with a P on the mode dial. In this mode, the camera automatically adjusts shutter speed and aperture for optimal exposure. Use this mode for snapshots and other situations when you want to leave the camera in charge of the shutter speed and aperture. To operate in this mode, turn the camera on and switch the mode dial to P. Press the shutter button halfway down to activate the viewfinder. Look through the viewfinder to confirm the aperture and exposure settings. Before we discuss the advanced shooting modes anymore, it's important to understand a little more about shutter speeds and ISO settings. The shutter speed on your camera ranges from 60 to 1/4000th, meaning the shutter opens from 60 seconds to 1/4000th of a second. Choosing a correct shutter speed for the appropriate situation can help you add depth and creativity to your pictures, if you use it correctly. Shutter speeds have a range of very fast to very slow. Let's talk about these speeds in depth for a moment. The most frequently used shutter speeds lie within a range of about 1/500th to 1/60th of a second. This is a typical range used for everyday picture taking. Camera speeds slower than 1/60th will normally require a tripod to avoid blurring the entire picture. Faster shutter speeds are found in the range of 1/500th to 1/4000th. When the camera displays a shutter speed with a seconds marker, this tells the user that this is a measurement of seconds. When no seconds marker is displayed, this is considered a measurement of fractions of a second. For example, 8 with a seconds marker is 8 seconds. The number 8 without a seconds marker is 1/8 of a second. You can view this information on the LCD panel and through the camera's viewfinder. Let's talk about how this range of shutter speeds can affect the type of picture you're taking. A fast shutter speed of 1/2000th to 1/4000th could be used to freeze the wings of a bee flying above a flower collecting pollen. A shutter speed of 1/500th to 1/1000th could be ideal for freezing action at a sporting event. By selecting a moderate shutter speed of 1/125th to 1/500th, you'd be able to have an ideal speed for taking portraits of family or friends. If you'd like to slow things down and capture the effect of speed at a sporting event or slow down a waterfall, you'd then want to select a slow speed in the range of about 8 to 60. The slowest shutter speeds fall in the realm of 8 to 30 seconds. These shutter speeds will normally be used for shooting images at night. In addition to adjusting your shutter speed, you can also adjust your camera's sensitivity to light. The ISO setting affects the imaging sensor's sensitivity. The higher the number, the less light that is required to properly expose the image sensor. You can either have the camera automatically choose the sensitivity, or you can set your own sensitivity range. To adjust the ISO setting, press OK. Use the right and left arrow buttons to highlight the desired ISO setting, then press OK. Keep in mind that a higher ISO setting may introduce noise or grain into your images. An ISO setting that is too high for the shooting conditions will make the image lose quality, and you might even start to see particles in your picture. Experiment with ISO settings to become more familiar with their range and control. The image sensor on your camera is very powerful. It gives you the flexibility to shoot in low light conditions and still get amazing pictures. Your camera has an ISO range of 100 to 1600. For most applications, you'll use an ISO of 200 to 400. The next setting on the mode dial is A, or Aperture Value Mode. If you use this mode, you'll set the aperture value yourself, but the camera will calculate the shutter speed necessary for a proper exposure. This is very handy when you want to create a long or short depth of field. To use this mode, set the mode dial to A and press the shutter button halfway down. Turn the main dial to select an aperture value as you watch the display through the viewfinder. Once you've made your selection, press the shutter button to take the picture. When the f-stop is a small number, the aperture has a large opening, letting in more light, creating a short depth of field. This blurs the background and foreground. When the f-stop is a large number, the aperture has a small opening, letting in a small amount of light, creating a long depth of field. This keeps the background and foreground in focus. Remember, you can change the ISO setting to make your image more or less sensitive to light. The next setting on the mode dial is the S or shutter priority mode. Use this mode to set your own shutter speed while the camera automatically selects the correct aperture value. To operate the camera in this mode, turn the mode dial to S, hold the shutter button halfway down, and use the control dial to select your desired shutter speed. You can view the shutter speed and aperture values through the camera's viewfinder or on the back LCD panel. If you use the back LCD panel, the shutter speed will be in yellow and the aperture value will appear in white. When you've chosen your desired shutter speed, hold the shutter button halfway down to focus. When you're ready, take the shot. The last selection of the advanced shooting modes is manual or M mode. This mode gives you complete control of the camera. In manual mode, you will set the shutter speed, aperture, and ISO to get a proper exposure. To operate the camera in manual mode, rotate the mode dial to M. A light exposure scale will appear on the back LCD panel. Adjust the camera's shutter speed by rotating the control dial to the left or right. The closer the scale arrow is to the center, the better your exposure will be. Now set the aperture value. To do this, hold down the plus/minus button to the right of the shutter button. The aperture value on the back LCD will now be highlighted in yellow. Select the desired aperture, then press the shutter button halfway down. Verify the settings through the viewfinder, and then take the picture. Remember, you can verify your aperture value and shutter speed through the camera's viewfinder. Another way to operate in manual mode is to use the camera's live mode setting. Press the bracketed button near the camera's 4-way controller pad to pull up live mode. The selected shutter speed value will be highlighted in yellow. To change the value, you still rotate the control dial to the left or right. Instead of seeing a scale in live mode, you will see a number appear in the far right corner that will indicate whether your picture is under or overexposed. If the value has a plus sign, it is overexposed. If it has a minus sign, it is underexposed. The aperture value appears to the right of the shutter speed value and is changed by holding down the plus/minus button to the right of the shutter button. The scale value on the right will help you determine the proper value for correct exposure. When you're ready, hold the shutter button halfway down to focus, then take the picture. We'll talk more about how to effectively use this mode and give you some theory behind the manual mode in later chapters. In addition to these modes, there are many different flash settings to choose from. To access the flash mode, press the flash button on the top left side of the camera. Use the right and left controller arrows to select the preferred flash mode option. Then press OK to save your selection. The 4 primary options are auto, red eye reduction, flash on, and flash off. The next 4 options have to do with slow speeds and sync flash modes, and the third row affects the flash output ratio.